There aren't too many Western leaders who've survived the onslaught that came after trying to manage the pandemic. Trump went, Boris Johnson too, Scott Morrison, of course, and only Emmanuel Macron is still standing. While there was no handbook on dealing with such a mammoth crisis, all those who ended up being deposed showed some real weaknesses under pressure and quite often. A French businesswoman, a former colleague of mine, in fact, from my days working in China, has written a new book titled Dare to Unlead. Celine Schillinger writes about why we are being so badly let down by world leaders. She argues that the solution to the future of leadership in an ever-changing world might be best found in unleading. It's a book that's receiving wide global acclaim, and Celine joins me now live from Paris. Celine Schillinger, it is fantastic to see you again. Thank you very much for your time. What motivated you to write a book about the lack of leadership we have in business and politics and elsewhere now?
Thank you, Chris. I'm absolutely delighted to be here and to see you again after all those years. So what led me write this book is actually a long experience in the corporate world and the frustrating realization that so much talent got wasted because it didn't fit into a certain leadership mold. And by looking at this mold more closely, I realized it was terribly outdated, and how could that serve us and our organizations well into the future? It didn't. So I thought I'd better write something about it, all based on my experience and on experiments where new forms of interactions with people led to outstanding results, and I wanted to provide elements of that.
You write about how in business and politics we have an old traditional leadership model, and often that means those leaders become risk averse. Why is that so wrong, especially now?
They do. Humans will do anything to fight uncertainty. And that includes putting our fate in the hands of people who seem more self-assured than others. And the problem is that this helps, or this enables those in power to expand further their power. So the bad-intentioned ones will actually change institutions or to stay in power longer.
Yeah.
But even the well-intentioned ones will progressively detach themselves from reality, can isolate themselves in a bubble of confirmation and surrounded by sycophants who tell them anything they want to hear. And in doing so, they will cut themselves off from collective intelligence and from the input of more people, more divergent views, or that would help us, all of us, find better solutions that would be adapted to, that would integrate all our different views and have much better buy-in and engagement from the people.
Gee, some of those examples can be found in Moscow and Beijing very adequately, I think. So to explain to my viewers how unleading is the solution to leadership.
So I think really leadership is an ideology, and we should address the future, which is extraordinarily complicated and which requires people's engagement. I believe we need to create more agency at a much bigger scale. That is, start to think of leadership not as an individual capacity, but as a collective capacity.
Right.
And how can we develop this collective capacity, community and networks? That's the real leadership question of the 21st century, I believe.
I have this thing about leadership, and I've seen it too often, both with younger people who join the workforce and also with politicians and business people, whereby they lack resilience, Celine. And I see it so often, and it's the time we need to turn that around. We need resilience more than ever now, don't we?
Yes and no. I have a slightly different view on resilience, which means returning to an original state, right? The capacity to return to, and I think we actually need to evolve continuously. So what I prefer instead of resilience is the word agency. It is the capacity, the ability, and the willingness to act. And too often we are developing this helplessness and a sense of nothing can change here. Let's hand over our fate to this strong man or a strong woman, and then he or she will save us. And that's not how things will work. We all need to get involved together. So we need to invent new forms of democracy in our societies, but also in our businesses.
Yeah. Very true. You haven't changed. You're still fabulously inspiring. It's great to speak with you. The book is called Dare to Unlead. You can get it at good bookstores, of course. Celine, Schillinger, thank you so much for your time. All the best. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Merci.